Loss is one of the most profound experiences anyone can go through. Whether it's the loss of a loved one, a relationship, or even a dream, the emotional toll can be overwhelming. I've been through it, and I've seen so many others walk this path. It often feels like your world is crumbling, but sometimes, without even realizing it, you may be coping better than you think. I've spent countless hours on forums and platform threads, reading what people like you and me are going through. And guess what? You may be doing a lot better than you give yourself credit for. Here are some signs that show you're handling your grief better than you realize. Number 1. You let yourself feel, even when it's painful. One of the biggest misconceptions about coping is that getting better means not feeling the pain anymore. That's simply not true. People who cope well are the ones who allow themselves to feel the full spectrum of emotions, whether it's sorrow, anger, or even numbness. The fact that you're allowing yourself to cry, rage, or sit in quiet sadness is a huge sign of progress. Take it from Julie, a woman I came across on Reddit. After losing her sister, she would often cry on her way to work. She thought she wasn't coping well because she was still crying months later. But in a post update, she shared that a friend told her, "The fact that you're letting yourself cry is a sign you're processing it. The pain is not controlling you, you're giving it space. It's okay to hurt. The fact that you let yourself hurt is one of the healthiest things you can do. It shows that you're not avoiding your feelings, and avoiding emotions is where most people truly get stuck." 2. You're not avoiding triggers. You face them, even in small doses. Grief has a way of creeping up in unexpected places. It could be a song, a smell, or even a location that triggers a flood of emotions. If you find yourself encountering these triggers, even if it makes you tear up or feel heavy for a while, that's a sign of strength. Facing your emotions instead of running from them is key to healing. I remember watching an online video from a man named Richard who shared his journey of dealing with the loss of his partner. He explained how he used to avoid going to their favorite park because it hurt too much. Over time, he found himself walking by the park, then sitting on a bench nearby, and eventually he was able to walk through it again. The fact that I didn't completely shut the door on those memories, no matter how painful, was a sign I was healing, even if I couldn't see it at the time. You don't have to dive headfirst into your pain, but the fact that you're dipping your toes in means you're moving forward. 3. You're finding new meaning in small joys. When you're deep in grief, it's hard to imagine ever feeling happiness again. But one of the subtle signs you're healing is when you catch yourself smiling or laughing at something small. It could be a funny meme, the warmth of sunlight on your face, or a moment of connection with a friend. One woman shared how after her father passed away, felt guilty every time she laughed or enjoyed something. But over time, she realized those moments of joy weren't signs that she was forgetting him. They were signs that she was carrying him with her into a life that still held meaning. I started noticing the little things, a good cup of coffee, a funny TV show, and those moments became tiny reminders that life still has good things to offer, even when it feels like it's all been taken away. The fact that you're finding moments of joy, however fleeting, is a sign that your heart is still open to life. That's a huge step. 4. You're leaning on your support system. Sometimes when we're grieving, we isolate ourselves because we think nobody understands our pain. But if you've reached out to friends, family, or even an online community, it means you're recognizing the importance of connection and healing. You don't have to talk about your grief 24/7 to get support, but just knowing that you're not alone can make a world of difference. I remember scrolling through the comments on an online video where someone shared how they finally joined a grief support group after losing their mother. At first, they felt like they had nothing in common with the people there, but just showing up was a big deal. Over time, they found that simply being around others who got it made them feel more understood and less alone. You don't have to go through this alone. If you're reaching out to others, even in the smallest ways, like texting a friend, posting on Reddit, or joining a forum, that's a sign you're coping in a healthy way. 5. You allow yourself to remember without getting stuck in the past. It's hard to strike a balance between remembering someone and feeling like you're stuck in the past. If you're able to recall memories with fondness, even if they still bring tears to your eyes, without getting overwhelmed by sadness, that's a big sign that you're healing. One woman on an online grief forum shared how after losing her husband, she would spend hours flipping through old photo albums, sobbing uncontrollably. But one day, she found herself smiling at a picture of them on their honeymoon. I still cried, but it wasn't that uncontrollable, gut-wrenching sob. I was smiling through the tears because I felt grateful for those memories. Being able to remember the good times and feel a mix of emotions is a healthy way to keep the past alive without being consumed by it. 6. You're starting to envision a future, even if it looks different. When you're in the thick of grief, it's hard to imagine life moving forward. But if you've found yourself thinking about the future, even in the smallest ways, it's a sign that hope is still alive. Maybe you're thinking about going back to school, taking up a new hobby, or just imagining what life might look like a year from now. That's progress. I remember reading a post from a guy who had lost his best friend. For months, he couldn't think beyond the next day. But then one afternoon, he started making plans for a trip he'd always talked about taking with his friend. I wasn't sure if I'd ever really go, but the fact that I was thinking about it again showed me that there's still a part of me that wants to live. Grief changes your future, but if you're starting to think about it, even just a little, it's a sure sign that you're beginning to move forward. 7. You've established small new routines. After a significant loss, life feels like it's been turned upside down. If you've managed to create small routines, even if it's something as simple as making your bed, taking a daily walk, or having a regular cup of tea in the afternoon, that's a huge sign of progress. New routines are a way of reclaiming some sense of normalcy when everything feels chaotic. I read a story from a woman who lost her partner unexpectedly. For months, she struggled to get out of bed. Then one day, she decided to start her mornings by making a cup of coffee and sitting by the window. "It sounds like such a small thing," she said, "but having something to look forward to, even if it's just for 10 minutes, reminded me that I'm still here, still living, still moving forward." If you've started forming any kind of routine, no matter how small, it's a sign that you're finding your footing again. That's no small feat. 8. You've begun to honor their memory in meaningful ways. Another sign you're coping better than you think is when you start finding ways to honor the memory of the person you've lost. Whether it's through lighting a candle, volunteering for a cause they cared about, or simply sharing their stories with others. These small acts show that you're transforming your grief into something meaningful. I remember reading a comment from someone who lost her best friend. She started planting a tree every year on her friend's birthday. "I couldn't bear the thought of her not being here anymore," she shared, "but planting trees in her memory gave me something to focus on. It became my way of celebrating her life." Honoring someone's memory, in whatever form feels right to you, is a sign of emotional strength. It means you're finding ways to integrate their presence into your life without being consumed by their absence. 9. You're comfortable saying no when you need space. When you're grieving, there's often an unspoken pressure to get back to normal or to keep up with social obligations. But one clear sign that you're coping well is if you've learned to say no when you need time for yourself. You don't owe anyone an explanation, and if you've found that you're able to prioritize your own emotional needs, that's a powerful sign of healing. I once saw a woman named Kelsey talk about how, after losing her mother, initially felt obligated to attend every family event, even when she didn't have the energy. It wasn't until I started setting boundaries and saying no when I needed to that I really began to heal, she said. It gave me space to grieve in my own way, without feeling like I was disappointing anyone. Giving yourself permission to step back when you need to does not mean you're running away from the pain. You're learning how to manage it on your terms. That's real strength. 10. You recognize that your grief doesn't define you. Grief is a part of you, but it's not all of you. If you've started to recognize that you are more than your loss, that your identity is not solely tied to your grief, that's a sign of deep emotional progress. This doesn't mean you're forgetting the person or experience you've lost, but it does mean that you're allowing yourself to be a whole person again, with dreams, desires, and a future. I recall a gentleman who shared about losing his wife after 30 years of marriage. For the first few months, he couldn't see himself as anything other than a widower. But after some time, he realized that while his loss would always be part of him, he was also a father, a friend, a writer, and so much more. "I'll always miss her," he wrote, "but I'm starting to realize that my life has room for other things too. That doesn't make the love I had for her any less real." Recognizing that your grief doesn't define your entire existence is a huge step. It shows that while your loss is part of your story, it's not the only story you have to tell. I know loss feels heavy, like a weight you might never be able to shake. But take heart. If you've noticed any of these signs in yourself, you're coping far better than you give yourself credit for. Healing doesn't happen in a straight line. Some days will be harder than others, but the fact that you're feeling, facing triggers, finding joy, leaning on support, remembering without being stuck, and envisioning a future means you're on the right path. Give yourself grace. You're healing, even when it doesn't feel like it. And if no one has told you this today, you're doing a great job. Keep going. Feel free to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If you found the video helpful, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to not miss any of our future videos. Thank you for watching,